themselves with the help of a fact-checking organisation. Full Fact, its chief executive, Will Moy, is here. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
So this is self-fact-check. How can you do it?
Well, we're going to be overwhelmed in the next week with the political parties and others pushing their messages on us, and we think it's time that everybody was ready to protect our vote. So we've just said there are 3 simple questions we recommend everybody ask about what we see. Firstly, where's it come from? Do you know the source? Do you trust the source? Do they have an agenda? If you can't find a source, search for it. Sometimes things have been bubbling around for ages that are untrue.
And that, of course, is easier with digital technology.
It really is. And if you want to check out an image or something like that, there's a guide on our website at fullfact.org/toolkit on how to do reverse image searching and find the source of images. So that's question 1. Where's it come from? Second question is what's missing? It's amazing how many people will share stuff online when they've only seen a headline and they haven't clicked through to see what else is going on. So before you send something to all of your friends, to all of your family, have a look and just click through, see what's missing. That way you can stop being played for a fool by people who'd like to. But the biggest question, and this is the thing we've really realised in the last couple of years, is how does it make you feel? We know that people who are pushing misinformation and disinformation are trying to wind you up to get a rise, to get the result they want. So often something that's winding you up might be trying to manipulate you. That's the time to stop and think before you share.
Who is doing this? Is this external agents who are perhaps over-enthusiastic supporters of a particular party? Or are the parties themselves actually implicated in this?
It's both. In the last election, we saw a lot of outriders and volunteers and individuals just putting stuff online, making their case, sometimes honestly thinking it was right, but just getting their facts in a twist. In this election, we've seen political parties adopting what we would call disinformation techniques, actually hiding the source of what they're doing, masquerading as independent journalism.
The same as Fact Check UK at the Conservative Centre.
As we saw, and also even in the physical world, we've seen the Liberal Democrats and the Conservative Party publishing campaign leaflets that try to pretend they're local newspapers. So you've really got to be on your guard as a voter in this election.
Now, what about the fact that, it used to be that this stuff was got out in the analogue world and media organisations would go through it, it would be mediated. Now, because of the internet, you can just put it out direct. You don't need the media.
Exactly, and it's much, much easier for our top politicians to avoid answering questions that they don't want to be asked. That's a real problem for all of us, I think. There are 2 big changes with the internet. One is we're surrounded by information. It's hard to know what to trust. So actually finding sources you do trust and relying on them is important. The other is we've left our election law in the 20th century. So the rules that say you have to be transparent about campaigning offline, you have to put your name on things you print, don't apply online. You can masquerade as someone else and the laws don't stop you.
Do you think it is possible to regulate effectively the internet?
I think it's possible to take the principles that we've agreed for over a century, like your name should be on the things you publish as a political party during an election campaign, and say those principles haven't stopped applying and they still need to apply online. I think it's possible to say that online advertising, which isn't like offline advertising where everybody sees the same thing. It's very different.
What about, it's just an example. I've had an email in from criticising our coverage from Proud Granny 24. Not identified as a person, putting it out there. Can we move to a situation where private citizens, if you like, are identified as to who they are?
Well, I think that's a really big question. And it's a really good example of where there are real trade-offs between free speech, your ability to say what you like online and be who you like online, and reducing some of the harms that happen online. What we've seen so far is that Parliament has ducked those questions. So instead of deciding how our election law is shaped through open, democratic, transparent processes, we've outsourced those questions to the CEOs of American internet companies. We can't do that much longer.
And at the moment, are we losing? The battle for truth and facts, are we losing?
We're fighting, and we need to keep fighting harder.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, lots more from All Out Politics coming up in the next hour, especially, of course,